Hello to the pessimistic, optimistic, and everyone in between. My name is Connor Philippi, and welcome back to the Minnesotan Sports Podcast. And this was the week for Minnesota Vikings fans where we could just sit, relax, watch some football without worrying about a heart attack. Make sure we're eating up those Cheerios so that we can keep our hearts healthy for next week when I'm sure there's going to be another nail-biter action to take place. But today was the end of the 7th week of the NFL season, and the Vikings had their bye week, which, you can say this or that about how early or late the bye week is the most beneficial for a young Vikings team, which I'll talk about here. Some of the things that they need to work on, it was best to get those things worked on as early in the season as possible with these young coaches and everything like that. But at the same time, now we have to play a lot of games without the rest, later in the season. So there's positives and negatives to both. But with this bye week, I just wanted to kind of give everyone take a second and just let's break down the Vikings first, maybe third of the season, I guess you could say, a little more than a third of the season that they've played so far. Kind of give a breakdown of where they sit in the standings, what they can work on going into the rest of the year, and just how realistic it is for us to make it to the playoffs, win the NFC North, and maybe even as far as, say, get a high seed in this playoff picture that's looking way more favorable for us than I could have ever potentially imagined at the beginning of this season. So let's do a brief kind of recap of the season so far, just game by game. The Vikings start off the season with a 23-7 win over the Packers. This was the game where our hopes were maybe made a little higher than expected. We still feel great about where we are at this point in the season, but at that point we were thinking, man, we can be one of the best teams in the league. We can the Packers at that point we thought were such an amazing team, and it's still impressive that we were able to come in and beat them at the beginning of the season and in such a amazing manner that we did it. But we started off the season flying high, and speaking of flying, we went into Eagle territory the next week and just got blown out 24-7 in probably the worst game of Kirk Cousins' career, through I believe 3 of the 5 interceptions he has in this entire season up to this point in that one game. Jalen Hurts completely exposed our secondary. It was not good. And then we go into this slew of games, 4 games in a row. The Vikings win 4 of those in a row, but every single one of them could have easily been a loss. And this is exactly what happened to us last season, except guess what? We lost all those games last season. We're seeing the growth here of being able to stick out and win close games, and it really is showing the grit and the spirit of this team due to the fact that we didn't play our best games in these 4 games. And there's a lot of ways we can improve and be up from here, and it's not our peak yet, and yet we still were able to stick out these games against opponents that, granted, we should have beat. But we stick out all these wins, and these young defenders and young and old defenders, the whole secondary, making plays when it counts, which is the most important part. Every facet of the team, special teams, offense, defense, at least kept this team in it so that when it came to that big moment, we at least had the opportunity to make the play and win the game, and we did it week after week after week. The Lions game, our defense stood strong against a Lions offense that has looked really good in a few games. The last couple weeks, it was really rough, but the first few weeks of the season, they were putting up a lot of points. And our offense really did not look the best, but guess what? When it came down to it, KJ Osborne with a huge touchdown reception to ice the game and win it for us in the last few seconds. Same thing with the Saints game. We did get some favorable calls at the end of that game, and we really didn't look our best. But guess what? A big couple kicks by Greg Joseph, and just Kirk Cousins getting the ball to receivers in the most key moments when he hadn't been able to for the lot of that game. And they win that one off the double doink. Then the Bears. We really didn't do anything the entire second half. Let the whole lead slip away. But once we got to that point where the Bears took the lead, Kirk Cousins took initiative, ran all the way down the field. Yes, we would have loved for him to be able to play that way all game long and just completely obliterate the Bears. But he got that done. And then, of course, Cameron Dantzler with a huge strip. Seconds after missing a big tackle. I mean, these players have so much resilience in them, which is something we just didn't see last season. And it's something, again, at the Dolphins, our defense carried us that game. And of course, Kirk Cousins comes up, makes the plays in the fourth quarter when we need to, we could sense that our defense was kind of starting to give up more yards and more points. We knew that we had to make a big statement at the end of that game. Got a big touchdown to put us up by more than a score. And now we sit 5-1. And yes, you could argue we are looking like, a 5-1 team that could easily be 0-6. I mean, at this point, we would have beat the Packers either way, but we could be 1-5 right now. But guess what? We aren't. People saying that, the Vikings are, not that good of a team because they could have lost all those games, but it's a W in the win column, and that's all that matters. Good teams find ways to win games when they aren't playing their best football, and it's very clear that the Vikings, this is not the best football the Vikings can play. With these players, with this coaching staff, it's obviously just a lot of kinks that we need to work out. I'm not saying that I think that we're just going to be a Super Bowl favorite, but I am saying that these close losses or these close wins are a lot. It shows the fact that we are slowly rising up. We hit a plateau at the beginning of the season, but there's a lot of games left to play. And I think that with, 11, I'm trying to remember with all the games, 11 games left in the season still to play. There's going to be a lot more storylines with this team than what we saw the first 6 weeks. This is not going to be the same team that can barely win games. We're going to see now, I think that either we're going to rise above that and we're going to start winning games against better teams and start to rewrite the narrative, or we're going to get crushed by the really good teams, and that's going to damage our psyche enough where we're going to start losing those close games again, and we're going to end up missing the playoffs. I think we could easily be at a point where we could either be one of the highest seeds in the NFC, or we could potentially be at a point where we're struggling to get a playoff spot. However, we're going to go into the standings here because it's going to be really difficult for us to do that. And my prediction is we're going to see that first thing that I said, where we're going to start to beat better teams, we're going to prove teams wrong, and we're going to start rising up. Again, I'm not saying that we're a Super Bowl favorite by any means, but I do think that we're the type of team that you are nervous to face in the playoffs. So let's go over this playoff picture here for the NFC. I'm not going to go over the AFC quite yet because I think we're going to do a mid-season thing where we talk about both conferences in depth. We'll do that in a few weeks from now. But going into the NFC playoff picture, first of all, with the divisional standings, the Vikings are now currently, I believe, I can't remember which one it is. It's a full 3.5 games ahead of the Packers with the tiebreaker, which means that the Vikings are going to need to, even if the Packers run the table, which is a phrase that I hate because of what happened that one year, but even if the Packers run the table, that means the Vikings still have to lose 4 games, including the one later in the season to the Packers, if we're going to lose this division. And I'll explain why I think that's very unlikely, even if the Packers somehow have some huge change in their play, which they won't. Even with that, it's still very unlikely the Vikings will lose this division, and I'll show you with the schedule we have coming or left in the season. But now let's go to the conference standings, not the conference standings, the playoff picture, where we currently are the second seed, and it drops off after that. I mean, we've got the poor Giants and Cowboys that are 6-1 and 5-2, and because of their divisions, have to be 5-6 and have to play on the road to start off the playoffs if it ended right now. Because the West and the South are not looking that good right now. Look, the Seahawks are currently in the 3rd seed. I'm not saying the Seahawks are playing awful football, but even at 4-3, they shouldn't be in that spot right now. The Rams are currently 3-3, and the San Francisco 49ers are currently 3-4. Now, I do think, based off of, and again, I'll break this down more mid-season, but I think the 49ers are going to have a resurgence here, especially with the addition of McCaffrey. I think they will end up winning this division, and they will definitely start going at it against the Vikings to try and get that second seed, as well as the Buccaneers. I don't think they're just going to be a pushover, but right now they're 3-4, leading their division. The NFC South is not looking super strong either, which means the Vikings at 5-1, even if they lose a few games that they shouldn't throughout the rest of this stretch, I think that they could definitely still get the second seed. That this is one of the easiest routes, I think, to the NFC Championship that the Vikings have had in a long time. And especially not 2018. I think that was a really difficult route to the championship. Because right now, if the season ended, the Vikings would play the Rams. I think that's going to still be a chance of that happening at the end of the season. But the Vikings would play the Rams at the 7 seed. If you played them right now, I feel like I'd take the Vikings on that one. If you win that one, you play either the Seahawks if they win, or if the Cowboys beat the Seahawks, you'd play the winner of the Buccaneers and the Giants, which are also two teams that I think we could beat right now. And again, all these narratives are gonna change by the end of the season, so we'll have to see. But right now, the Vikings seem to have one of the easiest routes to the NFC Championship that they've had. And again, we're gonna have to play a lot better, even with this easy route. We're gonna have to play a lot better than we've been playing the first 6 weeks to make that happen. But it's definitely still a realistic possibility. And now, before we finish off the video, let's just go over some of these games we have left. Let's do kind of a breakdown of what could potentially happen the rest of the season. We're sitting right now at 5-1, and we're going to go into this game against Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, which, with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, this Cardinals team changes dramatically. And I'm not going to give my pick on that one because that one's one that's definitely a 50-50, and I'll break it down on Friday. But that's a 50-50 game. But then we play at the Commanders, which, yeah, the Packers lost to the Commanders, but at the same time, they're not good. You'd think that the Commanders beating the Packers would be a big statement win, but the way the Packers played, it's not really. I think that we could still easily beat the Commanders here because the Packers are not that team. If you beat the Packers, it's not as exciting and amazing as it used to be. And then you play at the Bills. I can't even conceive how that could be a win for us. The Bills are playing too well right now. We'd have to fix a lot of our issues quickly and have a big resurgence in the next couple weeks for us to be able to beat the Bills. And then another rough game at home against the Cowboys. Dak will be comfortably in his spot at that point. He's coming off a few weeks off the injury. He'll be fine at that point, and I am concerned about that game as well. So 3 games I'm concerned about in the next 4. But then after that, we play Thanksgiving against the Patriots, at home against the Jets, which they're in a similar boat as us. They're looking good at 5-2, but also the sample size of the teams they've played, not to mention their history. They're also a team that's kind of one way or other, but I would still be pretty confident we'd beat them. At the Lions, which is always, you always get concerned about at the Lions, but we should still win that one. At home against the Colts, which they just benched Matt Ryan for their rookie, or the rookie or second year at this point, Ellinger, I can't remember. We play at home against the Giants, another team that it's kind of hard to tell right now. At the Packers and at the Bears. At the Packers, regardless of how good the team is always difficult. But I think realistically, my prediction right now, lose to the Cardinals, lose to the Bills, lose to the Cowboys, and maybe either the Giants or the Packers. So that gives you 4. 4 losses potentially for the rest of the season, which would put us at 11-6, or 12-5, which is one win better than I thought we'd get this season. And again, it could swing either way, but if we can continue to improve week by week now and start to build up that offense, start to try and fix some things that we've had so far with Ed Donatell's defense that have definitely been an issue, fix all those things, come back, and maintain that grittiness and that willingness to come up in the big moments, if you pair that energy that we've had at the start of this season with the improvements that we could potentially make, that results in a much better football team and a team that I genuinely think could compete for a chance to play in the NFC Championship game. And then when we get to that point, if we get to that point, of course, we'd be most likely at the Eagles, which I don't think I want to do that, but we'll have to see. But anyway, that's kind of a breakdown of how it's been going so far for us. Offensive line needs to get shored up. Obviously, Christian Darrisaw has been amazing. O'Neal continues to play well. But that interior offensive line is still concerning. We got to fix that a little bit. Ed Donatell's defense needs to be reworked a little bit, or we need to make a move in this trade deadline, which if we make any moves, I'll make sure to cover it. We need to either fix it somehow, scheme-wise or whatever it takes, or get some more speed in the trade deadline to fix that defense. And then the offense just needs to get on the same page a little better and consistently play well all 4 quarters. If this offense can play well all 4 quarters, regardless of what the defense does, this is a dangerous team. And if all those things get taken care of, we could, again, legitimately be a scary team in the playoffs, which I really hope happens. I hope this isn't another year where everything implodes, but we'll have to see. But again, everyone keep eating your Cheerios, keep that heart healthy for next week's game against the Cardinals. I'll break that one all down. Another home game. I'll break it down and give you my prediction. Although I did kind of tell you I think we're going to lose, but I'll give you my prediction of that, and I'll also break down all the games like I always do. I'm excited for all that and excited to be able to continue making these videos more consistently again. I appreciate everyone who watches. Make sure you like and subscribe so I know which videos you like. Give me comments suggesting things to change or just tell me what you like, and I'd be happy to make any changes to my content that'll make everyone happy. So thanks again, and I'll see you on the flip side.